Get down to 21.2, the 20s Woman. We're going to understand the role of women in American society in the 1920s and how does women's role in society change in the 1920s. Because this is a very important decade for women, right? They win the right to vote in the beginning of it, and so you kind of have this massive change in the way women act and present themselves in American society. So one is the flapper. The flapper is the kind of style a lot of women chose to wear during the 1920s, right? And it was in direct opposition to kind of the traditional roles and styles and forms that women had kind of done before. And these are all women wearing flapper clothing. It was more loosely fitting, right? Before this, it's corsets, it's big dresses, right? So flapper dresses are generally not going to go much lower than the knee, right? So they're shorter dresses, they're looser fitting, they're not wearing the corsets, which are incredibly uncomfortable and incredibly tough to wear every day. Right? A lot of times their hair would be shorter or would be tied up short. They wear these kind of little felt hats. And this was kind of the mark of the modern woman, right? The flappers are generally younger women. These are women that are generally going to be a little bit more urban. And it's really kind of expressing this new freedom that a lot of women feel in the 1920s after they earn the right to vote. It's not so much a political movement, but as a social one, where these women kind of embodied this newfound kind of freedom, this newfound opportunities for women, and they weren't going to kind of be in the roles that society had kind of placed for them. A lot of older women and more conservative men would say this is really bad. These women are, they're not going to get married, right? That was a big concern of a lot of probably these women's mothers, was that if you're not following these kind of very strict societal rules on marriage, you're not going to get married. That was a big concern. These flapper women were generally more social. They would drink, they would smoke, they would do it publicly. These are things 15 years before this, 10 years before this, 5 years before this would have been absolutely scandalous. To see a woman smoking or drinking in public would have been a huge deal. That woman would have been kind of marked. It would have been harder for her to find a husband, to get married, which was always kind of at the forefront of a lot of young women's minds. These women don't necessarily have that focus on marriage. You see also, there's a rise in casual dating. Before the 1920s, you only kind of dated people, you only courted people that you were seriously considering marrying. Right? So that means that if you were kind of going on dates and seeing someone, you really thought there was a chance that you would marry them. Flapper is kind of like a more casual dating scene. A lot of men, obviously, it takes two to tango, but there's a more kind of casual dating scene where people kind of date for fun and date less seriously, and it's not all about getting married. But you see the emergence of a double standard where men are held to different kind of societal standards as women, right? And men are allowed to kind of get away with more casual dating, more sexual freedom than women are because of this double standard. That women who are seen as dating too many men, seen as drinking too much, smoking too much, whatever it is, too social, too flirty, are not going to be marriageable, not be able to kind of be as desirable as a spouse, right? So that kind of affects women socially in that where they still have to be cognizant of that kind of societal pressure that's being put on them. We have new work opportunities for women, right? We see the dawn of women's professions. A lot of women are getting educated, a lot of women are going to school, getting college degrees, and we see that a lot of women become nurses, a lot of women become teachers, right? These are women's professions, right? And that, these are things that men generally aren't going to do, but they are good middle-class jobs for women to have, at least until they get married. Again, it's kind of seen as a woman's working. That means that the husband, people would see that as the husband not doing his job as the breadwinner for the family. There's still a lot of inequality and discrimination. Again, women are kind of pigeonholed into secretarial jobs, clerk jobs, and these women professions are not really doing much else other than that. They definitely get paid less. They're definitely, especially once they're married, it's really hard for them to get jobs all the time. A lot of times, married women would be seen as their places in the home. People wouldn't hire them. And some colleges, even though They are accepting women, have like very strict quotas, like especially for professional schools, doctors, lawyers. There are starting to become women doctors, women lawyers, but like Harvard and Yale, these big colleges are only accepting like 5% of their classes are going to be women, and which really is going to set a ton of inequality for women during this time period. See, the way that families are raised and like people choose to have families, the middle class in America gains leisure time, right? There's a lot of kind of time-saving inventions, and women who are homemakers or staying at home are not spending all their time cooking and cleaning and doing these things. They're doing book clubs and playing tennis and kind of having this leisure time, which people really didn't have before, right? And this is definitely a middle class kind of phenomenon, right? Where people have free time, especially these women have this free time to hang out with friends and do what they want. This is a big change, right? You even see people starting to go on vacation. The beaches, especially along the East Coast, become very popular for people. And we see a change in marriage being that it's going to be based on personal preference and not so much your family's preference, right? Before this, families had a big hand in kind of deciding who you got married to, who you would marry. Their family played a big role, how much money they had, how much, who their ancestors were, things like that, what their family had done. That all mattered more than if you actually liked the person or not. In the 1920s, we really see marriages that are based on people actually loving each other and wanting to be married to each other. And that's going to lead to happier marriages, but also a lot of these marriages that kind of come that are based on more of a more formal kind of family preference. We'll see ended divorce during the 1920s, and you have a big rise in the divorce rate in the 1920s because a lot of people just weren't happy being married to someone that they weren't really in love with when they knew that they could go and be married to someone that they did. Okay? If you have any other questions, make sure to ask your history teachers. Thanks for watching.